Okay guys, let's go ahead and continue with our progressive walk cycle and do the second half of our walk cycle. So we want to go to frame 29. We'll open up the frame range. So now it should be 1 to 29. If I drag select everything and I press F down here in the graph editor, you can see that my curves only go to 15. If I press G, it's going to highlight the frame range. So now we're going to fill up the rest of the frames. So just like before, we have our contact pose. The next one we're going to do is our passing position for the other leg. So this is at frame 7, so we're going to want to go 7 frames. Right. 2, 3. So we're going to want to go 6. 1, 2, 6 here to frame 21. I'm going to hit S for everything. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to put this foot on the ground by getting rid of the X rotation and the Z rotation on the foot. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to make sure that there's no values on these smaller minor controls on the foot, and there aren't. So then we'll take our upper body control, and remember the Y value didn't really change between the contact pose and the passing pose, so we're just going to pull it forward in Z until it's over the planted foot. We're also going to push it to the side in X translation so that the center of the pelvis lines up with the inside of the foot. We're going to take the hip control. We're going to get rid of the Y rotation. We're going to hit E and we'll add in some Z rotation. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take I'm going to go ahead and switch to our other perspective window, and I'm going to select our right IK goal, and I'm going to slide this forward until it's right up here because it's passing now. We're going to bring it up in Y. I'm going to hit E, so I have my rotation manipulator. I'm going to rotate the foot down. I hit W for translation, bring it up. I like to kind of reverse, so I'm going to, I'll select the IK goal, and I'm going to take the raise heel. I'm going to kind of reverse it. So I'm going to use my middle mouse button, and I'm going to go this way to try and get a little bit of a dragging the toe kind of pose. Let's rotate it up in X a little bit more. And let's raise the entire thing up in Y. And maybe bring it forward just a little bit more in Z. Okay, so let's orbit around. Rotate it out a little bit to just give it a little bit more shape from the front view. So if I go to orthographic, front view, it just gives it a little bit nicer silhouette. Okay? So that's pretty much what we need for our passing position. So I'm going to go ahead and drag select all the controls again, and I'm going to hit S just to make sure we've got a key there. So now let's go back to frame 15, and we're going to go 2 frames into the future. We're going to create our low extreme. So for this pose, remember one of the things we want to do is we want to take our planted foot. Let's go back to the other perspective window. And we want this to be just like it is at frame 21. So I'm going to go to frame 21. Actually, let's go back here to 15. I'm going to drag select all three of these controls. So I'm going to go here to frame 21. And I'm down here. I have the focus of my cursor is in the timeline. So I'm going to press down with my middle mouse button, and I'm holding the middle mouse button down until I get to frame 17. And then I'm going to let go and hit S. So now you can see that that foot plants after 2 frames. Another characteristic of the low extreme is that this happened last time too. I don't know what's going on. There's nothing on this. There's nothing on this. It's so bizarre. Well, hopefully it straightens itself out. Okay. Another characteristic of the low extreme is that it's the lowest that the upper body control goes. So we can look to, if I press F and then G, we can see that my low extreme here at frame 3, the value was minus 19.201. So if I go here to 15, and then I go to 17, sorry, and I hit S, I can make this minus 17.01. Is that what it was? Doesn't seem right. Minus 19. So I'll make this minus 19. Okay, so now it's gone down a similar amount. I think we can move this forward a little bit more. The weight should be behind the planted foot. With this foot, I'm going to select all 3 of these controls. We want it to be the same as it was at 15. So I'm going to middle mouse button, drag it till 17 and hit S, right? So now you can see that it pulls away. So what we want to do is hit this toe and rotate it up. Okay, some other characteristics of the low extreme. If we look at it from the front view, if I go to the orthographic front view, we want at this point the weight is going to have shifted over onto the planted foot. So it's almost to where it would be at the next keyframe. Another thing is we're going to add in some Z rotation, right? So remember the Z rotation over here was something like 13. We can see the value here. This is the frame number on these two, and this is the value of it. So I can see that it was 13.2. So here, if I hit S, I can make this minus 13. This is like, oh. I could do this even more, a little more. Okay. Right? Something else we can do with this, I'm going to take this control down here and I'm going to rotate it in just a little bit. we get a nicer shape. Then you do the same thing here. Oops, not that way. Okay, so now I have one more pose to do. So I'm going to drag select all of my controls. I'm going to go to frame 17. I'm just going to hit S. Now let's go to our next contact pose, which will be the match pose of this. Basically, we're creating this, only the Z translations will all be further forward. So I'm going to go to frame 29. I'm going to zero this out. I'm going to get rid of the X translation here. Actually, let's drag select and put a key here. Okay. So we got rid of the X translations. And we're going to drag it forward in Z translation. We're going to take this foot and we're going to get rid of the X translation and Y and Z. I mean the rotations. I'm going to put it back on the ground. I'm going to slide it forward. I'm gonna rotate it up in X. I'm gonna slide it forward and see a little bit more. There's something on here. Let's see. Oh, this one had missing on it. Oh, it's the raise heel. Let's get rid of that. Which means now we can slide it forward just a little bit more. You don't want to hyperextend it. You want it to still be just a little bit bent. And then remember here with this one, we're going to add in just a little bit of raise heel because it's starting to roll up on the toe. And now that I've done that, I feel like I can probably move this just a little bit farther forward in Z, which means I can move this just a little bit farther forward in Z. Anything on here? Let me see. No values, no values. This is Y. Should probably not have that on there. And I think I can rotate the heel a little bit more. Okay. So remember, we also want to add in some Y rotation here. So if I just isolate this Y rotation, we can see that the value originally was 30, right? So we definitely want this to be 30 again. So I can enter the 30 here. Now that I've done that, it seems like I can come forward just a little bit more in X, which means I can go forward a little bit more here in X. Oops. Now we just have to do our high extreme. So now that we've got this pose, I'm going to show you guys, just if we really want to make it match frame 1, I'm going to hit S on this. I'm going to select all these controls, and then I'm going to Control deselect the IK goals and the upper body control. I'm going to come back here, and I'm just going to copy this pose, and I'm going to go to 29, and I'm going to paste this pose. Then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the upper body control, the IK goals for the shift, select the IK goals for the upper body, and both of the feet. And then I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to highlight all of these, and then I'm going to hit Command or Control, and I'm going to deselect the Z channel. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come back here, I'm going to copy, come over here, and I will paste. Whoa! Let's undo that. I want everything about this pose except for the, sorry, except for the Z-tran. Oops, sorry. Copy and paste. All right, well, let's just do it one at a time. So again, I'm going to highlight everything in here. I'm going to hit Command or Control, depending on which kind of computer you're on. Come back here. I'll say copy and paste. And then I'll do the same thing for here. I'm going to select all my channels. I'm going to hit Command, since I'm on a Mac, and deselect Translate Z. Go back here. I'll say copy. Go to frame 29 and say paste. Okay, so now those poses like completely match, except for the Z translation values. So we've got one more pose to do, and we're going to do it here at frame 27. Okay, so let's drag select all our controls. I'm going to hit S right here. So now what we're doing is we're creating the high extreme. So this is characterized by being the highest point in your Y translation. So if I look at where my highest point was here, we want it to be identical. So here it's minus 5.843. So here I'm going to make this the same. Change the tangents on here by hitting D so I get auto key. Z translate. Yeah, looks pretty much right. Look at it from the front view. I want this to still be over a little bit. I would put this up here. What value did I make this? I made this minus 10. Let's just make it even, minus 10. And let's make it 10 here. Nice sawtooth kind of shape. All right, for the Y rotation, I don't think we really did anything on the other side, so that looks pretty good. This foot, we want to increase the raise heel. So we were just kind of sort of tilting the foot down on the last pose. So let's try and create something that's identical. So I'm going to bring it back a little bit in Z. I'm going to rotate it down so it's kind of leading. So let's see what we get now if we play it back. And let's look at it from the front. All right, so we've got a little bit of cleanup to do, and we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so let's talk about what we do once we get to this point. We've got our completed cycle, but we want our character to continue moving forward. So I have selected all the controls, drag select all the controls. I will shift select everything up here just to make sure I've got everything. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all my curves by not going over a key. I'm just selecting the curves. I'm going to come over here in the graph editor. I'm going to go curves, pre-infinity, cycle, and then post-infinity cycle. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is under view, I'm going to make sure I have infinity checked on. Okay. Now, we want everything to cycle, all the channels, all the controls to cycle. But for the ones that are moving forward in space, in Z translation, which is this upper body control, and both of the, oops, frame that. And both of the IK controls, the big controls on the feet. These, we want to select just the Z translation. So if I frame this, you can see that it goes forward and then it jumps back. We don't want that. We want it to continue moving forward and to continue moving back through space. So I'm going to select these curves and I'm going to come up here to say curves, pre-infinity, cycle with offset, and curves, post-infinity, cycle with offset. So now it would continue moving forward. So if I, let's just test it out. I'm going to go ahead and open up this frame range to frame 100. And I'll zoom out a little bit. But if I do this, you can see he keeps moving forward, which is exactly what we want. So if I play this, there he goes. So for your, so let's think about it, 29 times 3 is 87. So I'm gonna go to frame 87. And here's our guy. So now if I shoot out a play blast, we have a rough walk cycle. So I will talk to you guys in class next week about how we clean this walk cycle up and make it really nice. And we'll add the upper body and the arm swing. So for next week, what you want to do is you want to get this far. Okay, we're just doing the lower body. We're concentrating on the upper body control and the legs. We want to get one full cycle. And for homework, if you could upload your scene file and then also upload a play blast of your walk cycle. If we could get a view of it from the side and then another one from the front, that would be perfect. Talk to you guys later.